Okay, we're now in part 2 of diabetes. So this is going to be a continuation of the first video, which is talking about the biological process of homeostasis. And what we focused on, the core issue, is going to be diabetes, which is the regulation of glucose within our system. Glucose, of course, is necessary component of creating ATP. And of course, the whole process of generating ATP is via cellular respiration. And ultimately, that is how the cells are obtaining energy. So let's go ahead and take a glance at this particular section. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole at all. We just want to illustrate how these marry one another, okay? And so what we're going to be going through is energy and metabolism. Take a look at glycolysis. We're not going into the citric acid cycle and oxidative phosphorylation. We'll take a look at fermentation, which is anaerobic without oxygen, and that's it. Okay? So just real quick, this is the magic molecule here. Okay? This is adenosine triphosphate. Okay? So we have an adenine molecule. You don't know what it comprises of. We have a ribose, a sugar. Okay, and then we have 3 phosphate groups here. Okay, and it's this breaking of the bond which is releasing the energy. Okay, it's a form of energy that enables cells to do more work, fires pistons for muscle movement, synapses firing so we can think, so on and so forth. You can look at it as when you apply a flame to a firecracker, okay? And when you break, when that fire reaches that powder within the firework, then it goes off either by light or sound, and that is energy being released. This is the exact same process, okay? Well, we don't use fire, but it is a reaction nonetheless, and it is the breaking apart of this bond, kind of like a rubber band snapping. There's energy released, and that's exactly what is happening here with adenosine triphosphate. And then this whole molecule gets reused, another phosphate group gets put on, blah, 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 blah. But these are all things that we learn in biochemistry as well. But we're not going there. So let's go ahead and move on. All right, just some basics is that energy is the capacity to do work, okay? So obviously it takes greater energy to go against the grain or going up a ladder, okay? So when you're on top of, as it's illustrated here, when you're on top, we have potential energy when we drop this anvil, okay? When we let go of it, we've got kinetic energy, okay? And that energy can take the form of heat, sound, elastic energy, so on and so forth, okay? Now, energy cannot be created or destroyed. We've all heard that. So it can be stored as chemical energy in bonds, which is in this case, and then transformed into different types of energy. Okay, how do we capture energy? A couple of terms that I'd like you to know: autotroph and heterotroph. Autotrophs are producers. That's going to be your plants and animals. Autotrophs, it just means that, again, your plants and that, they are builders. Their metabolism is anabolic. They're building stuff. They take in what we give off. We'll talk about that later. So they need CO2. We respire CO2, okay? So they need those carbons to build the glucose rings, to build the tomatoes, to build the apples, the berries, what have you, okay? And they use the sun, the photons, to stimulate the solar panels, and then electrons start moving and so on and so forth, which we call photosynthesis. Then we have heterotrophs, which is what we are. And we can break those down a variety of types, but we don't need to know about that. That's not part of this lecture. The heterotrophs are where we do not make our own food. We actually take in foodstuffs and break it down catabolically, okay? So we need the plants. Okay, and then we eat things that eat the plants, like cows, as an example. Okay, so we are heterotrophs. We break down foodstuffs. Okay. Now, when it comes to understanding some reactions, cellular respiration, make sure you are familiar with this one, and make sure you're familiar with photosynthesis. Okay. Now, what this is, for those of you that have had chemistry a while or just not sure, so this is a reaction. So we've got 6 molecules of oxygen, that's what the 6 means, plus we've got the molecule or 1 molecule of glucose, C6H12O6. Okay, that's a molecule, just one. And then this arrow means yielding. And then the products, the left side of the arrow are your reactants, the right side are products. So we're yielding 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water. That's animal cellular respiration. Every time we take a breath, we're taking in oxygen, and then we maybe already have breakfast, lunch, dinner, but ultimately we have glucose stored in our body, okay? And so when you mix those together, there's a chemical reaction, and then there's a variety of reactions that are occurring within respiration, and the byproduct that gets given out when we exhale is carbon dioxide and water. You know we give out water because when it's cold out, you see your breath. Those are the molecules of water that are coalescing and forming droplets, okay? Now, look at photosynthesis. Now, look at the products of cellular respiration and look at the reactants of photosynthesis. So photosynthesis starts with our product, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water yields 1 glucose molecule and 6 molecules of oxygen. Okay? So it takes 6 molecules because there are 6 carbons within 1 molecule of glucose. Okay? So we need one another. We need plants more than they need us. They just need the sun. Okay? So they're building fruits and vegetables. We are consuming them and breaking them down back to their constituent components and give, circle of life kind of thing. Okay? So make sure you do know this. You'll see that again, I guarantee you. Metabolism, I've talked about it already a few times. Make sure you know it. That there's catabolic reactions, which is a breaking down of things, releasing energy. And then you got anabolic reactions, which is happening with those that are making tomatoes, plants making tomatoes, apples, that's storing energy. So those apples have energy. When we eat it, it gets released because we're breaking it down. So anabolic reactions, okay, so you add a couple of glucoses, you get glycogen. Glycerol plus a fatty acid yields a triglyceride, okay? And then a couple of amino acids, we end up with a protein, okay? And what this means is that there's energy supplied to this to make this happen. This is an anabolic reaction. Okay. And this is just more information. This is a good one, breaks down large molecules, so on. Okay, enzymes. Enzymes are proteins. Okay, again, as I mentioned to you a couple of videos ago, proteins take on a variety of shapes, sizes, and they do many, many things within the human body. And enzymes is a molecule, a protein that is no exception. Enzymes are very important in cellular respiration. It is with cellular respiration, we didn't have enzymatic reactions or enzymatic activity within cellular respiration, we would not survive. We need enzymes. We need proteins. And of course, these proteins come from the coding that comes from DNA. Okay? So what enzymes do is help a reaction move forward. Okay? So just a couple of terms. So this is a particular enzyme. This is just an illustration. This is considered a substrate. So you have a substrate and an enzyme. Okay, the next slide will show a little bit more in detail. But basically an enzyme attaches to a substrate, whatever that molecule is, and then either breaks it apart or combines molecules together to make one larger molecule. Okay, so let's take a look. So here's an example. So we've got an enzyme called sucrase. By the way, anything that ends in ASE is an enzyme, just for future reference. So we're going to be making sucrose, which is a combination of glucose and fructose. So sucrose is table sugar. So this is a reaction that makes sugar. All right. So here's our enzyme. Okay. And then the substrate is going to be, actually we're breaking apart sugar. So, excuse me on that, I messed up. So we've got sucrose, which involves glucose and fructose. And then we've got the enzyme that will carry that reaction out. So you can see that there's a bonding. That's what this illustrates. There's a bonding of the sucrose with the sucrase, the enzyme. Add some water, because remember, in a hydrolysis, we break bonds apart. So we're wanting to break this apart, which happens here on the next illustration. And then you end up with the constituents of glucose and fructose. And of course, it's glucose, which is the magic. That's what we need. Okay? So it's very, very simple. That's all we need to know. Just understand that an enzyme helps a reaction move forward. It assists in either breaking molecules apart or building them up. Okay? So this is just another example, another type of illustration. So here you've got an enzyme of something. It doesn't matter. You have the substrate. So you have two individual molecules. They will go ahead and bond and create a complete complex. A reaction occurs over time. It could be milliseconds, it could be seconds, who knows, doesn't matter. And then after a period of time has passed, you end up with a product of a brand new molecule. We started with two individual molecules, we now have one. And then this enzyme continues over and over and over again. Okay. I do have a video here that illustrates this. I hope it works. I think you just have to click on the blue. I've never had an image like that set up, but yeah, I'm experimenting. It's the same one as where it says induced underline. You can click on that as well. It's the same one. If you wish, it's just another opportunity to look from another perspective. Okay, the word inhibition. Okay, let's talk about that. Inhibition is meaning that we are inhibiting. And why is this important to understand? When we inhibit something, that means that we're preventing a reaction to move forward. This is very important in homeostasis, because obviously we just don't need to keep on generating a particular product if it's not needed anymore. So how does it stop? Well, there's a signaling going on saying, hey, we don't need any more. So there is what's called inhibition, where it blocks a reaction from occurring. Okay, and there's a couple of different types. We have competitive inhibition and non-competitive inhibition. Super simple. Okay, so here the first one is occurring where there's no inhibitor. So here we have the enzyme. Here we have a particular molecule. This area here, as it says, is the active site. So this is going to be like a hand and glove fit. The molecule fits into the enzyme, and then over time you've got a molecule, whether it's one, whether it's two, or ultimately a different product. Then we have a competitive inhibitor. Okay, the competitive inhibitors mean all that we have is something, a molecule that blocks another molecule from adhering to the enzyme. So because this molecule is here in this active site, this molecule or substrate is not able to bond with or create a complex with the enzyme. So the reaction stops. Okay? That's called competitive because it's competing at the active site. And then non-competitive inhibition or allosteric inhibition, one and the same, is where you have that same said molecule that is just adhering to the enzyme at a different location, whereby the active site has changed geometrically. Okay, so now this particular substrate or molecule cannot fit within this active site. It doesn't work. The geometry is wrong. So it's ultimately changing the geometric shape of the enzyme. So that stops the reaction from occurring. Okay? So just make sure you understand inhibition. Okay, that's as far as we need to go. It is so much more advanced, obviously, but fun, interesting stuff. But we don't need to go there. As long as you appreciate and understand it exists, you win. Okay, and we're going to go into cellular respiration, food to energy. I don't need to go any talk about this. We've already done it. Sugar plus oxygen yields carbon dioxide, water, cellular respiration. Again, know this particular reaction. Okay. Now, one thing I do want to pass along is that, and I'm assuming you know this, but if not, that's okay. When we use oxygen, it is considered aerobic. Okay, so when we're breathing oxygen, it's aerobic. When we're not using oxygen, or oxygen is not part of the reaction, it is anaerobic. Okay. And then ATP, make sure you understand this layout. We've got an adenine, a ribose, and a phosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. Because you got 3 of these. So this is one part of the molecule, and this is the other. Okay. This is what, when we eat foodstuffs, this is what we're trying to get, to create this molecule of ATP. That's the money. All right. That's the end goal, and it gives us the ability to do stuff. It's so important. Okay, I just have this up here. We're not getting into it, but this is cellular respiration. If you want to go into upper level biology classes, biochemistry, you go into great detail. It is very lengthy, very involved. We're not going to go there. We're just going to take a look at glycolysis. Okay. I have a video here of glycolysis. It's somewhat good, but glycolysis is super simple. Okay. So glycolysis is the breakdown of glucose. Okay. So what happens is glucose will ultimately get into the cell. Glycolysis, okay, everything happens within the mitochondria. That's why they call mitochondria the powerhouse of the cell, because that's what that's where ATP is formed, and then it gets spread throughout. However, glucose is too big of a molecule to get within the mitochondria, because the mitochondria is much smaller than the cell. So the cell has to break down glucose. Okay? So glycolysis, glucose, it is the breaking down of glucose. So you don't have to know all of this information here. I just want to make sure you understand that we have a glucose molecule that within the cytoplasm gets broken down into 2 individual molecules called pyruvate. You got 3 carbons here and 3 carbons here. Okay? We start with one ringed molecule right up here in glucose that we got from our Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich, and then our body, our cell within the cytoplasm is break down to pyruvate, which then gets taken into the cell walls of the mitochondria and then starts getting worked on, and the chemical reactions move forward. Okay, and again, this is the citric acid cycle, where now we have pyruvic acid, and then it's going through a variety of reactions. Again, I'm not interested in you knowing that. That's not the point. Okay. This is if you want to know more for curiosity's sake, then you're more than welcome to look at some of these videos. They can be kind of dry, but they're interesting nonetheless. And just pointing out this right here, this green, this is pump right here. Okay. So this is going to be a protein, and it literally is like a machine. Okay. This is a pump. This is the mitochondria, where we are bringing in hydrogens and generating ATPs. There's more to that, but there is a pump. And researchers have actually diagrammed this, and it really looks like a working pump. It's a machine. It's amazing. And then lastly is lactic acid formation. I have another video on that. It's very brief. I think it's a cartoon animation about it. And that happens anaerobically. We've all experienced it. So when you're working out and you get cramps, and so on, in your muscles and that is lactic acid formation. It just means that your body cannot produce any more ATP. It can't process anything more for your body to do what it needs to do. So it goes to the fallback position of lactic acid formation, or trying to get ATP. It's a very inefficient way, fermentation is, to generate ATP. Much more and less efficient. However, it still does work to a point, but then it stops, and then you just fall or what have you. Okay. An excellent way to get it is to get rid of it is sucking on oxygen. Okay. And you've seen this football, as I say in lab, because you get a football player, a lineman that picks up a fumble, runs 40 yards for a touchdown, hasn't run that fast in his life, 300-pounder. He's all happy. The teammates are happy. He says, "Get me to the sidelines, put me on that oxygen mask." Okay, because his body is cramping up. His body could not take in enough oxygen and produce enough ATP to get that big boy moving the way he did. Okay. And so this is why people train, like for marathons. If there's any runners out there, you know that you got to train your body and become efficient in utilizing oxygen and maximize the ATP to do what you need to do to run. Okay? Let's see, that's that. Yeah. So that is the end of this particular video. I don't believe there's anything more. I hope this helps out. Any questions, let me know.